Hello, everyone. We'll give him a few minutes to hop in and join. But we have a really exciting new series, The Agents in the Wild. And today we have Booking.com actually talking about one of their amazing agent applications. So to folks who are joining, we'll kick off. We'll do some intros. We'll go over a little bit of the agenda, and then I'm going to hand it to the booking team to talk about a lot of things about their agent, how they're building it, how they're evaluating it, kind of lessons learned from the trenches. For folks who have questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat. And what we'll do is I'll try to find a way to get them in as we're going through the presentation today. Awesome. Okay, well, let's kick it off. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me go ahead and put, oops. Awesome. Okay, and go ahead. Okay, awesome. So let's kick this off. So today we have an really awesome session planned. Agents in the Wild, this time looking at one of the agents that the Booking.com team has built. And with that, let me actually ask some of the booking team to introduce themselves. Chana, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, my name is Chana Ross. I'm a machine learning manager at Booking. I joined Booking about 2.5 years ago, and I manage the recommendation platform and the GenAI orchestrator, which we'll be talking about soon.
Awesome. Moran, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Moran Beladev. I'm senior machine learning manager at Booking. I'm leading the content intelligence team, which is responsible for different content areas like moderation, GenAI evaluation, GenAI, and also supply enrichment using Booking images and unstructured data. Yeah, and I'm so happy to be here and tell you about our GenAI stuff.
Awesome. And I'll just go really quick. My name is Aparna, one of the founders here at Arize, and we work really closely with the booking team. My goal is just to highlight kind of the awesome, we've been hearing a lot about the amazing work their team's been doing and cool lessons from the trenches. So goal is to kind of hear from the experts here. With that, let me share a little bit of the agenda. The booking team is going to walk through their use case of why they decided to build what they did. They'll walk through the architecture, design decisions, and trade-offs that they had to make, and then talk about that continuous iteration loop. And then they'll kind of share some of the key takeaways or lessons learned along the way. Again, drop questions in the chat. We'll pull them up and run through it. And with that, maybe, Ran, you could go ahead and share the kick this off.
Sure. Okay, so we will share with you the story about the AI Tree Planner, which is the first GenAI product we built. Yeah, we just did the introduction. I also joined Booking 2.5 years ago. And in general, I'm passionate about travel, domain, and GenAI ML community. So let's see a short demo of what is the AI Tree Planner. So the idea of the AI Tree Planner is that you can start the conversation from the index page. You can press the button, and then you have this UI where you can start chatting with our chatbot. You can ask about seeing different get recommendations for different destinations, and then to customize your what you ask for, so you get even a better destination recommendation. We have itineraries recommendation. So if we start, the user asks for itinerary, we split the answer by each day. And we also have personalized recommendations. So we ask follow-up questions to better understand the user needs, who you're traveling with, when you're traveling, and then we give even better personalized recommendations. So given this is the product, we'll stop it. So yeah, we have an end-to-end flow, starting from index page where you can press the banner and start the conversation. getting destination recommendation, property recommendation, and then once you are clicking the property, you will be in the property page and you can actually book the property. So from exploration phase to actually booking and having conversion. So first question, is it just another ChatGPT application? Are we doing just GPT calls? So the answer is no. Like we optimize the flow a lot for the travel domain, and we build dedicated architecture that we will talk about. We have personalized recommendation system that is more accurate, less hallucinated, using internal booking system to do that, and the internal booking data. We have explainable recommendation. We explain our recommendation, we enrich them with textual explanation of why this is the best fit for the user. We have a rich UX with carousel, booking funnel, and we build the flow and the architecture that it's very easy to integrate it with in-house models. So if we want to replace a third-party model, a GPT call with in-house model, we can do that, and we also will talk about it a bit. So the main components of the AI tree planner are these three. We have the GenAI orchestration, which Hannah will elaborate on, but the main idea here is to coordinate the flow, to manage the flow, and have the communication with booking internal services. We have the NLP service, which is managing the LLM task. So it's actually doing, we have different LLM tasks, and the NLP service is responsible for each one of them. And we have the recommendation platform, which is responsible. We have our internal recommendation models. And the idea here is that we can use our internal system to give recommendations. Yeah, so let's start with the NLP service. So this is the NLP service ecosystem. So from one side, we have the interaction with the GenAI orchestration, where we have different tasks, and then the orchestration know how to build the flow and how to use each task in the correct way. And the main task we have for the AI tree planner are first moderation. So we have given a user input, we want to be able to moderate it to see if it's inappropriate language, if it's a PII data. Then once we move from moderation, we want to have intent classification to identify what is the current intent of the user. And this is the main hub of the flow that direct the user to the next steps. We have judge and ask LLMs that define if we have enough information to give a user a recommendation. If not, we ask a follow-up question. Then we have a way to, given the conversation, to transform the conversation from unstructured data to structured format, having a JSON with features that then we can feed these features into a recommendation model, internal recommendation model. And we have, for example, carousel enrichment, which is responsible to enrich the recommendation with text. This is just example of the LLMs that we have. We have more, also question answering mechanism and things like that. Each block here is also interacting with different models. It can be third-party LLM, it can be in-house LLM. So we build it in a way that it's very easy to configure each block, what is the model behind it. Yeah, so just to explain about the flow, about the process that we did here, is first, when we build this product, we start simple. Like we have these different blocks that I just showed you, and we build some very basic prompts for each one of them, and we use prompts to achieve each task. Then the next step was to optimize these prompts, like to give few shot example, to use many prompt engineering techniques, chain of thoughts, reasoning, to add a lot of tasks to these prompts, and then we are more confident about them. And then we thought about switching from prompt to in-house fine-tuned model and training our own in-house model. And why to do that? So we have three main reasons. First is about accuracy. So once we launch this chat, we get a lot of data from real users, and we have real interactions of users with the chatbot, and we can annotate this specific chat and task with our annotators of having a classification of the intent, the right intent, And then we can use this data to fine-tune better LLM that fits the booking data. And by doing that, we gain higher accuracy. We also we can gain a latency decrease. So having a third-party model, you are sometimes they have outages and they're not fully reliable. And by having our own model, which we serve on our own resources, we can control it much more. And we actually was able to decrease the latency. And of course, it's about the price. We don't need to pay third-party model. And yeah. So a bit about training LLMs and what we did here. So there are a few options of how to train LLMs. You can train a pre-trained model from scratch to take massive data sources, a lot of data, billions of textual data, and train next token prediction. And then you train your own language model to on the next token prediction task. There is an option to do supervised fine-tuning with instruction following. So you take a base model that was already pre-trained and you just fine-tuning to your specific task with instruction. And the third part is about alignment. How we make sure what we build is also aligned with human preferences. And about alignment is like we use human in the loop, and we give, for example, in summarization task, we give the annotators, the human, to summarization. Now you need to choose which one is better. And given a prompt and given a task, we have the chosen one and the rejected one. And then we can use this data in the training process, like in DPO, direct preference optimization, to train the model to also optimize this kind of preferences. So mainly in booking, we are doing these two steps. We are doing a lot of fine-tuning, but also some alignment, for example, for summarization task. So if we deep dive a bit more, when we do fine-tuning, we use parameter-efficient fine-tuning, which is Hugging Face library where you can do not full fine-tuning, but just to have an efficient fine-tuning by just running part of the model weights and not all of them. So what we're doing here, we are taking already an open source model for the pre-trained phase, and then we want to fine-tune it and give an instruction on a specific task. So we basically tried two options. One is a prompt tuning. The idea of prompt tuning is to inject virtual tokens to the prompt, and then you just train and fine-tune these tokens. All the rest is freezed. And then you make your model to be more customized, more relevant to your prompt. The second one is LoRa, which the idea here is to add adapter layers, which is low rank matrices. And then you train just these layers. And by doing that, by the way, even with QLoRa, which is quantized adapters, we train less than 1% of the model parameters instead of doing full fine-tuning. And this process is much more efficient, much cheaper, and much easy to maintain. And by doing that, we did it, for example, for intent detection. So now we don't use GPT for intent detection, which is the hub of the process. We use in-house LLM. And by doing that, we boost the accuracy in 13%. And also we gain 5 times latency decrease, which is very good. So to wrap up, this part. So yeah, we have many tasks in the LLM part, and we use we start simple with a prompt, then we try to optimize it and replace it with in-house model. Now the question is about evaluation. How do we evaluate each task offline and also online? So not just dialogue, we have many other tasks. And for all the tasks, we are using similar building blocks. So if we have question answering in dialogue, we can have also question answering in a property page in booking and not just in a dialogue. We have text generation tasks. We have text summarization. So we have many tasks. And we want to be able to have a method to evaluate our LLM outputs. So yeah, we have all what we saw right now. We have performance evaluation, like I just showed you about precision, recall, but how we can know about the quality of our outputs. So yeah, now it's more about the quality. So for that, I will expand about three main metrics: factual accuracy, context relevance, and answer relevance. And the idea of having these quality metrics on our outputs, it's to make sure we are actually accurate, we are relevant, our outputs are clear and readable, and this is how we build trust with our customer, and we meet the product needs and performance metrics. So just to explain about these three metrics, this is just one example. So let's take, if we have a question and we send it to the LLM and we get the answer from the LLM. Also, we have a document, which is the context that we give to the LLM to be able to answer this question. So context relevance is about given this context, this document and the user question, do we have actually an answer to these questions in the doc? Are we able to answer it? So this is about context relevance. Is our context, our document is relevant to the user question? Answer relevancy is about answer and question. So given the question and the answer, are we actually answering the user question, or we are answering something else? Is the answer A is relevant to the question? But it can be relevant, but it can be relevant, but it cannot be accurate, right? Like we can answer something which is relevant to what user asked for, but maybe it's hallucination, it's not correct. So this is why we have factual accuracy, which given the answer and the document, is the answer actually true? Is it actually mentioned in the document? So that's how we are building LLM as evaluators. And the process to do that is first offline. We have a minimal data set. We have different prompts of judge LLMs, of LLM as evaluators. We are having different models. We are trying different models. And then we comparing cost versus performance of these judge LLMs, because we have some label data. And then we are doing some ping pong between these two. So we are optimizing the prompt, checking the cost and performance. And once we log them, we have a prompt that we know it's a good judge, and we know which model to use for this judge. We can move from offline evaluation to online evaluation. And then what we are doing is we actually take production data, sample it, and run these evaluators on these outputs. And we're using aggregation to log and alert if we see some drift in factual accuracy. We have some increase in performance of the factual accuracy. So we want to know that and to trigger an alert for that. So we need to know that we need to improve something in the system. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, so for example, for context relevant is relevant for dialogue and question answering. Answer relevant is relevant for different tasks. Factual accuracy is relevant for actually all the tasks that we have. And that's how we define for each task what evaluators we want to have. Yeah, that's it from my part, if you have some questions.
Thanks so much for walking us through that, Moran. And let me go through maybe a little bit of questions before kind of you hop into, I know, the whole next set of questions here. Let me see if I can pull some from the customer, sorry, from the chat here. So we have some folks asking, so your evaluations that you're doing, do you do both online and offline, or are you actually running the evaluations online on tracking data?
Yeah, so this is actually the last slide I showed. Hannah, can you go one above? Two above, yeah. Yeah, so offline we are doing one more. Yeah, offline we are doing the process of setting the right prompt of what will be our evaluator, our judge for each task. Once we block our evaluator and we know what we need, then we use this evaluator in online process. We don't do it for every LLM output because it's very costly. We do random sampling on our data set, and then we run evaluation on top. We have dashboards that we can see over time what is our factual accuracy, what is our context relevance, all of that.
Yep. And I know it's a key part of how you guys do the evaluation workflows. Can I ask, okay, maybe one more question. So maybe this is higher level. Ren, there's a lot of different components of this application. There's not just the LLM part. There's obviously you're going through the recommendation models. There was the NLP service that you have. How did you guys, this evaluation you're talking about is about specifically that LLM component. Um, but how do you think about evaluations across the entire flow?
I will let Hannah to explain this
Yeah,
part.
I think the way that we look at it is that there's different aspects of evaluation. So we start from the LLM, which is the signal component. Then we'll
Mhm.
look at a task, which is like the NLP service. So we're looking at question and answer. That could be multiple LLMs. But then we also could look at an overall task. I want to do recommendation. That includes calling the skills or the tasks that Moran has in the NLP service, but adding to that internal services and components. And that's a full solution to the user. That is what the user is actually going to see at the end of the day. And then we
Yeah.
have a dialogue level or a full system level. So at the end of the day, we kind of have these different evaluations or systems and metrics or dashboards. And each one of them gives us kind of information about a different aspect of the problem.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Maybe we let you dive in and talk about that entire
Sure.
intent. The
Yeah.
Okay.
especially with complex agents, I think what you're about to get into is it's not just one piece to evaluate.
Yeah. Okay, so diving into the other two systems. When we started working on the trip planner, we actually had the recommendation platform, which is a centralized platform for serving all of the recommendations across booking. And I'll talk about that first. And afterwards, I'll talk about the Gen AI orchestrator because it's actually built on top of the same key aspects and key kind of ideas. So what is the recommendation platform? If we look at booking at the funnel, at the website, we have many different recommendations that we serve in different areas. We have property recommendations, destination recommendations. The trip planner has attraction recommendations. We might want to even recommend a default airport when you start searching. And we have a drop-down recommendations when you start typing for different aspects that we can recommend. All of these are different verticals and different items that we want to recommend. And you can also see that each recommendation has its own enrichment, maybe an image, maybe some interesting review to the user, but it's personalized. Everybody wants to see different information about these items. So the platform knows how to actually centralize that and serve the right recommendations and the right metadata to the users. Why was this useful? Where did this come in place in the trip planner? If we look at a conversation, we actually have a lot of different types of recommendations that we want to provide the user. Popular attractions, nearby properties, nearby destinations. When people have the ability to write their requests, they can actually be very dynamic and very personalized about what they want. They can be very specific. It's not structured. It gives them the ability to say anything. And we need to be able to either structure that or understand it and then use our internal data to provide the best recommendations to the users. So if we look at that from like a higher level, we want to be able to do popular recommendations, nearby recommendations, deals, similar themes. And this requires, first of all, identifying what is the user's interest, but then also being able to pull the right items from our data sources and from our different models, or use an LLM maybe even as a recommendation model, and then provide those items back to the user. And if we look at the playground that we've built, so inside our platform, before we even started the trip planner, we had the ability to visualize these recommendations even before they were shown to users or put into production. So product managers could actually look at these recommendations and understand what they were going to serve. And this became very helpful when we were building the trip planner. So different verticals, different recommendations, we're actually being able to kind of understand them and then put them into the trip planner when we went into production. Okay, so that's the recommendation platform, and that was the base of the AI trip planner. Once the NLP had the judge and the ask and collected all the information, we then had to structure that information and use it, calling our service the recommendation platform. Think about it as another agent or another skill that we were using in order to provide the recommendations. So now if I look at it as an orchestrator, the orchestrator has to be this one centralized system that knows how to take different use cases and different needs and orchestrate these calls both to the NLP service, which does LLMs behind the scenes, but also to internal services. If I want to pull free text filters, I need to know how to connect to the search service in booking. If I want to do review summarization, I need to be able to show that on the property page or somewhere else inside the funnel. So I have to be able to call booking internal services, but also call the LLMs when they're relevant, when they're needed. And if we look at what actually is hiding here behind the scenes, we can see that we also need to know how to respond correctly so that the front end knows what to show the users. So if we go back to the trip planner, we might want to show a template. We might want to show text results, like textual information. Maybe we want a social bubble. So we want to have people be able to click into this conversation and be more kind of understanding of what the user is trying to say. And finally, we also want to show recommendations. We want to bring users into the funnel. Each one of these requires from the orchestrator a different API, a different response back to the front end, but also we have to fulfill this information in a different way. If we want to bring bubbles, now we have to call the LLM or the NLP service with the right endpoint or the right skill in order to provide these bubbles. So if we look at a conversation, I'm a trip planner, how can I help you? And someone says, I want to travel in August. Now we have to trigger the right skills. What do we understand from the conversation? Oh, the user said August. They talked about when they want to travel. But that's not enough for a recommendation. I can't really provide yet something meaningful to this user. So we're going to have to ask, great, where were you thinking of going? And then the user will say Paris. Now I've collected enough information in order to actually provide a recommendation for Paris in August. So if we look at that, first of all, we need to take that information and format it into something structured. Paris in France, and the check-in month is August 8th. Then we need to actually take that information and turn it into something we can use inside our funnel. So Paris doesn't mean anything inside booking. I need to actually turn that into an identifier, into something that is meaningful to all of our services and all of our models. Then we can call the recommendation platform with the right call and the right API in order to return those enriched results. And then we can even call the NLP service again to get some textual information about all these hotels that is most meaningful to this user. If the user said that they're a family, maybe we want to respond about family, relevant data about these hotels, so on. So if we think of the orchestrator from a higher level, it's responsible for connecting all of these textual responses coming from the LLMs and from the NLP to booking services, and then kind of putting that together into a single response back to the user. How do we do that? Here's an example. So I was talking about the location, Paris, France. If you search booking.com and you start typing Paris, you'll actually get a drop down of different locations. Each one of those behind it has an identifier, a lat long, a type of location that we understand. That service is something we use and we actually bring to the table when we want to do this structured API to booking identifiers. So this is just one example of many services that we already had inside Booking that we could leverage when we were building the trip planner in order to provide this structured data set so that we can call a recommendation platform, which already had all our models, and then bring the recommendations to the table, which helped us build this system much faster. And if I look at dashboarding, because again, we want to talk about the evaluation and the process that we were doing, I couldn't bring the real numbers here, but here's just an example of real information that we have inside Arize that we use in order to kind of understand what is happening behind the scenes, whether it's a detailed information per row. So each recommendation, what image did we show the user? Did the user click on it? Did we get feedback? How many messages did the conversation have? And we can also look at a dashboard of what is the number of dialogues we have per day? What are the number of dialogues we had in the last month? How does this look over time? How does this look with NDCG or with ranking and so on? And we can also get alerts. So these are like real examples of alerts that we have in the system, providing us real-time information that we then can say, oh, okay, we have a problem in production. Let's try to understand what's going on. So we actually have a very strong ETL system running behind the scenes, ensuring that everything is flowing into Arize on an hourly basis. And then we get these alerts at almost real time. And from the NLP service, they're pretty much real time. I think that's my last slide.
Wow, you guys got through so much in a 30-minute time period and super, detailed presentation. Thank you both, Moran and Chana, for going through this. Chana, your piece definitely explained the end-to-end evaluation, and end-to-end kind of visibility is really important, just as much as each individual component. Can I ask, okay, so I think Moran, you actually answered someone in the chat on this, but I think it'd be good to just explain to other folks. So you had the LLM as a judge metrics on content relevance, factual relevance, and then the actual accuracy. Somebody asked, why not make them a single metric? Why do you have them as, three separate, metrics? What was kind of the reasoning for that?
Yeah, I just explained in the chat that for LLM, it's also something we learned a lot during the process. Better that you defined one specific task for the LLM. Like if we want we say, okay, we have this question, we have this answer, and we have this context, is given the context, is given the question, given the answer, is it correct or not? Like it's maybe too complex. Better to simplify it a bit and let the LLM do one thing. Given the context and answer, is it correct? Like, is it actually presented? By the way, you can read a lot of blogs about it, and it's very like standard metrics to use, this free. And it keep it simple and very task-oriented thing for the LLM to understand. Yeah.
Agree. And then one last question. I know we're at time here, but we've been talking a lot about orchestration with a lot of these agent frameworks that are now becoming popular. How do you guys think about kind of you shared the example of there could be a lot of different types of questions that people ask, and you have to kind of orchestrate where do I send it and how do I get the right answer? How do you think about evaluating that?
Evaluating the orchestrator level.
Mhm.
So at the moment, we also are using like Judge LLMs for the orchestrator level. So you can think of user frustration. You can think of different areas of like the system. But we're also looking at more kind of classic like orchestrator level evaluations. So if people are complaining, we have feedback on our conversations, we have feedback on the overall system. So we're kind of learning about that piece as well. And we also have internal monitoring, more old school, of like how many conversations are we getting per day? So much more basic. How many messages are we getting? Are we having issues with latency suddenly? So a lot of the systems are also an aspect of just making sure everything is working correctly.
Got it. Got it. Well, thank you both so much for your time. This was super valuable information, and I think any last takeaways you guys can share before we hop off here. Um,
Um, I
lessons
think
from.
for me, the main lesson is that there are a lot of open source orchestrators out there. But what at least we realize is that many of them break pretty quickly when we come to the real world or to production. And then you kind of have to build your own tools. I don't know, Moran, if you feel the same way, but
Yeah, also like as I mentioned, like to keep it simple and to own it ourselves, like also the in-house models and all of that is also the lesson we learned. Yeah, and like I think like also all the tooling around it, the evaluation, logging system, tracing that we are doing with Arize, it's very something that we wanted to custom ourselves and to build it to our needs, and to have all this ecosystem. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So evaluate, I guess big takeaways like evaluate a lot, evaluate in pieces. Um, start to as you start to actually go into production, really know and own each of the components so you know how to debug it. Feels like the big takeaways that I'm
I think
getting.
also build small and grow. So we didn't try to tackle like a generalized system, but we built a complex system at the beginning and then changed it piece by piece over time.
Yeah. Also, something that's worth mentioning is that we build it in a right way, that it's building block that we can use for other use cases as well. So if I have intent detection, I can use it in many chatbots we have in booking, and like to build it in very like a modular way, modular building blocks that then can be reused. It's also something we learned. Yeah.
Super. I feel like we can keep going and keep peppering you guys with questions. With that, I'll kind of give you back your time. Thank you, Moran and Kana, so much, and excited to see what you guys continue to build.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks.
a lot. Thank you for the opportunity.
See you.
Bye.